Hello and welcome to the one, the only Gaming Booth Podcast, Episode 9, recommended by 0 out of all dentists. As always, I'm your host, Mitch, and joining me under obligation is Russell and Jordan.
I'm chained to the desk
That
right
is
now,
I.
forced to be here.
He is, and if he moves, there's a gun pointed at him, so he can't exactly move. Jordan kind of is just here, we trust him not to escape.
We're all part of a game that we must play through to the end.
And as always, we start this podcast by venturing to the untamed wilds we call the multiverse. And this week, we're visiting Earth 13, a world fully inhabited by creatures called Pokemon. However, unlike our fictional variant, death is very much reality for these creatures, and they die pretty easily. Rogue hyper beams take out buildings, Magikarp is still useless, and the Elite Four rule with an iron fist. With this multiverse, we're kind of stuck here until we figure out a way to escape. So I need you guys to pick. You're allowed an item from any game. This includes weapons, equipment, and whatever to help you survive. And I want to know how you'll use it and how that is a good idea to survive.
Is it just a weapon or
It can be whatever item
outfit?
you want from any game, including Pokemon, if that's what you want to do.
Well, I'm just gonna go flat out assassin. Be all stealthy, hide in the tall grass, not get detected, survive through the forests of this place to get the hell out on a ship somewhere.
But
I haven't
what
bought a
item are
ticket
you
to.
using?
The blades, hidden blades.
The hidden blades with my assassin's cloak and stuff.
You're
not a
allowed
buff
one
cap or
item. You can
anything.
have an assassin's blade, but you're not allowed the other things.
Okay, so I'll wear an assassin's blade, but I'm not wearing anything else, so therefore people don't want to be near me at all.
It's a good strategy. Russell, what's your strategy?
Now I'm not sure if we, at any point we'll come across lock gates or anything, but I'm bringing the Keyblade so I can get past any lock as well as beat the hell out of everything. The amount of times Sora's just like beating the shit out of like some kind of creature, heartless thing, I'm going to bring it with me because it'll be very effective, just blunt damage to any Pokemon I may face, as well as unlocking anything.
Okay, well, the thing about Pokemon is that for the most time, it's someone blocking the path, or it's like a Snorlax, so, you know, your key can't exactly unlock that. So I'm going to tell you exactly what happened to both of you. Which, to go off what I was saying about Russell, is that your key unlocks nothing. You actually need, like, a key card, which is the main way to open things, and the Keyblade doesn't unlock that. And you were hunted down by rock Pokemon, who cannot be defeated with a Keyblade, and were smashed between a rock and a hard place.
Well, I should be able to use all my spells too that come with the association of the Keyblade, so that should be very useful. In that
You only
respect
brought
too,
the Keyblade, you didn't bring its magical properties, I'm sorry to tell you. And, Jordan, you survived, but you're placed in jail for public indecency.
At least I survive. I can live with it.
That's true, and your prison mate is a Geodude. So,
Okay, I want out.
you can't go out, you've got a 20-year prison sentence. And so,
He keeps using Harden, damn it.
Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah, so that's the multiverse. John's in a tricky situation and Russell's dead because he chose a silly weapon. But before we move on, I need you to rate this world on the Multiverse Advisor. Wait, it says they shot down due to some suspicious meddling in the multiverse by an evil... it's nothing. We'll have to move on swiftly to talk about the news of the week. Welcome back to the Gaming Booth Podcast. We're going to talk about the news, and to talk about the biggest highlight of the week, we have to talk about a certain gameplay demo that was released by CG Projekt Red, finally showing us our first real look at what Cyberpunk 2077 plays like. So, guys, did we enjoy what we saw about Cyberpunk?
I mean, it's the thing that the press had seen it, they talked about it, they hyped it up. Do I think it lived up to the hype? I don't know, but it certainly was an exciting representation of what the game should be like at the end. I mean, they're reluctant to release it simply because that was their thing. It was like, oh, we don't know if we want to because people were negative on The Witcher 3 back on the day because it wasn't the game at the end, you know, that it was shown off earlier. But, you know, it still looks exciting. I can say that much.
They definitely nailed the world aspect of Cyberpunk with all these, like, so many references to other things that are similar to it, like the TV series Altered Carbon or other stuff like that. It just instantly feels cyberpunky to me.
Yeah, it's definitely got that vibe down right. But do we think this will take the kind of cyberpunk genre further in video games, because we've seen Deus Ex, they tried it. You've seen a whole bunch of other games, Shadowrun and stuff like that, try it. Do we think this is the one that will finally nail the Blade Runner, Altered Carbon kind of look?
The thing that instantly for me makes it more appealing than Deus Ex is the combat looks more like regular shooters and that sort of thing, instead of being more slow-paced and stealthy. I mean, you can still go stealth, but it makes more sense to the fast-pacedness of the game.
Not quite the question, but...
It's interesting that the cyberpunk genre is like, it's had so much representation in different forms. Do I think Cyberpunk 2077 has anything brand new? I don't know if it has anything brand new so much as it just combines it all together in a compelling way. I don't actually think there is much new on the table here. I think it's just combining assets we've seen before and perhaps making one of the most comprehensive Cyberpunk's universe we've seen.
And definitely probably the best video game depiction of it. I think the one thing I'm missing with these kind of demos is, like, the thing I loved about Blade Runner and all that is that the dark city vibe. We haven't really gone into the heart of the city. We've been in bits of it, but we haven't exactly seen like all the neon and all the grittiness. It seems kind of, I guess it is California and they're going for that kind of thing, but I don't know, from the initial reveal of, you know, with that, when we saw Cyberpunk, we didn't really see gameplay, but we saw a cop shooting some kind of android in like this dark, like more, I think it fit what I think of Cyberpunk more.
I think that's just purely a night and day thing, where it's like, because Blade Runner is such a forethought of that vision, where that was more like production things, where it's like to cut costs, they had to play at night, they had to put heaps of smog, but that quickly became like a defining aspect of that genre, or visual identity. And as you said, the first reveal trailer 5 years ago, or whatever, like that felt like that. I'm pretty confident that is what it's going to look like at night when you explore the city, but they didn't show us that so much as they wanted to show how it's different. Like, this is what, at some point it's daytime. This isn't a world where there's no sun. Like, at some point there is light, and this is what it looks like at that point.
You know, it does look good in the daytime. I think the fact when they spoke about it being seamless loading is pretty exciting. That, like, if they nail that fact when you're moving from parts of this huge city into other parts, it's just like, this will be really like the first look at what next gen will be, or like, because we're moving into an era of like, sure, graphics are great, graphics are really good, but they're looking into details and making the world more believable.
Most of the time when you hit loading screens, it takes you out of the game, and if it happens too many times, it just gets frustrating. So hopefully it's just simple.
Yeah, I think that fact they are going for full immersion, because that's why it's first person.
Yeah, they absolutely want you to feel every aspect of it. They want you to be the proxy for the character you're playing, as opposed to, like, that's one of the biggest aspects, is like they've dropped the third person aspect that I believe was promised originally, but they quickly found out through development that first person really made you feel like the character because of how it connected.
Yeah, like you're looking through their eyes. So like the world's going for really, really detailed. Like you can see that everywhere, that there's all this kind of like, I guess it's like translation of The Witcher 3, because like when you think about Novigrad and the big city there, it's just like there's so much going on, and Cyberpunk has really got a whole lot going on with it.
The game is essentially translating what you'd expect a universe to be in Blade Runner, except you're able to control the people instead of just watching the movie.
And everything didn't look scripted. Like they just it's clearly programmed to do
Obviously.
what it's doing, but it didn't look like the usual. Like you go to a little area and it's just like, if you just follow the character, like, oh, they really do nothing. It seemed, and they certainly are promising, that each character is doing its own thing. They're programmed in this world to explore it, do their own stuff, and basically having something exciting around every corner. Like the bit where like they show the guy at the car, and he's like seemingly wants to steal their car. It's like that aspect of just like there just seems to be someone wanting to interact with and wanted a confrontation or whatever else you may want to do. Like it always seems like that's an aspect.
My question's going to be, with the choices that you're given, how much is it going to affect it overall? Is it only going to be small changes, or say you want to steal that car instead of talking to them, will it drastically change what happens and then get changed down the track?
All I can say is like compare it to what Witcher 3 did. Witcher 3 absolutely had those conditional things where it's like, you will not have this option unless you often did this side quest. Like that was very common in Witcher, where it's like, you did this side quest that actually impacts the main story because of what you did there. And I can from that background, I can fully expect that Cyberpunk will be at least trying to mimic that idea. Where it's like, you did the side mission, because I believe the whole mission we showed was a side mission. It's not even a main mission.
It didn't seem to be a main mission or going towards a
Yeah.
real plot. It just seemed like criminal stuff.
But I can imagine at that point now you have a relationship with like the corporate. I don't know enough about Cyberpunk's world, but whatever that, you know, like the corporate like female was, I can imagine now you have that connection that could be very relevant to future main missions or even side missions and whatnot.
Yeah, and like, do we expect, like, you know how Witcher 3, people always said that got downgraded. Do we see this game looking how we've just been presented with it at launch, whenever it comes out, which it seems like it's going to be still a while away?
Well, from what they said, that the game's completely playable in alpha state from start to finish, so I would expect it would look better when it's released, not worse.
Maybe it's
Maybe.
It's really, we're getting to the point now where there are so many theories and ideas behind the next generation, and going off the past, we can assume it's very likely that the PS5 and Xbox whatever are probably going to be out 2020, or at least be in that kind of range of time. So Cyberpunk doesn't, to me, right now look like a next year game, especially with the ambitious comments like, we want it to be a fully explorable open world with 0 loading screens. I'm like, my experience in games right now is that is unachievable. They wouldn't be able to do it on the scale they're promising. So I think it's probably going to be next gen, at least if that is their goal, to hit that level of detail with that requirement.
They have said it's fully optimized for the Xbox One, PC, and PS4 at the moment, but, you know, whatever, like, fully optimized in, like, an alpha state, that doesn't really make sense to me, but I've read that somewhere, and, like, to talk about, like, fully playable from start to finish in an alpha state and a finished product are very distinctly different, because you'll have parts that are flat out missing, you'll have textures that aren't there. That's, like, just because it's playable doesn't mean it'll look as good as
and mechanics
now.
that haven't even potentially been developed yet. Like, often it could come down to the line where it's like, I think of like God of War, and I think the close like person perspective was like one of the very late things decided upon to like commit to. Was like, it's going to be that close person camera, and I can imagine, you know, Cyberpunk might be the same thing where it's like, we had the idea for, you know, a mantis blade type crazy weapon thing, but it's actually really hard to execute this everywhere. So maybe we actually cut it out or restrict it or whatever requirements come of fixing bugs and making it the most optimal experience.
Yeah, basically. To talk more about the whole, like, as Jordan tried to open with the gameplay, Jordan, what actually makes it really exciting for you in the gameplay perspective?
Oh, it feels like it's straight from the movies. Straight from that sort of feel, except you get to control how it goes. If you want to go full action-y or, you know, take more conversation approaches to stop stuff from happening. I don't know, just like the whole feel of it to me is like instantly sets the tone right and makes me want to play it. I
think Deus Ex did all that right. I think on a gameplay perspective, it was decent. Like, it was a by the numbers shooter. There was nothing like mechanically that made it feel as good as, say, a Halo or a Call of Duty.
The problem that I had with Deus Ex though was I found the controls to be too clunky, so it kicked me out of the immersion and made me not want to play it. Whereas this one looks as though hopefully won't do that. It's more streamlined. It's
an interesting aspect because CD Projekt, obviously from their past experience, have 0 experience in the FPS genre. However, my understanding is they've been hiring people who are experts in that field to make this game, or assist in making this game, because that's such a key focus. And from what I've seen, I'm very impressed, and I would say comparable to what Bethesda's been achieving in the first-person genre, which is pretty much one of the highest pinnacles in like a story-based first-person shooter.
Yeah.
And it looks fun, like that looks fun. As you said, Deus Ex always felt like it's a RPG type game with this external shooting mechanic, similar to Mass Effect even, where it's like it's an RPG game with a third-person shooter on top. It's not built together, and this feels to me like they've really focused on making the first-person fun. We don't see anything really other than the mantis blades, but at one point she's in like her workspace, and you see the samurai sword and stuff. I'm like, hell yes, I want a samurai sword in this game at some point. So melee must be a focus. You know, I'm excited by what I saw and what could potentially be there, with the caveat that in the past, CD Projekt hasn't really had experience in this field. What I'm seeing makes me pretty confident that they seem to have succeeded with this new venture.
Yeah,
It's always interesting when a company takes a new approach, whether if they're going to nail it or it'll flop. But it definitely looks as though they're going to nail it.
I think the best example there is Horizon Zero Dawn for Guerrilla, who kind of making the opposite switch to that CD Projekt are making, because they went from shooter first person to third person adventure game, whereas the CD Projekt are going from 3D like adventure to full on FPS thing, which is something they haven't done before. And I think in the gameplay perspective, it looks really fluid. I love the fact that it's got like slow down with all these kind of enhancers you're taking, which, you know, might get it banned in Australia.
It's very Witcher-like because it reminds me of the toxicity you get when you drink all the potions as Geralt. And I wonder if there's going to be some trade-off where it's like they speak of like, will you become more machine than human? And I wonder if it's like that idea with the you know, the enhancers they're using to like do the slow-mo and stuff. Like you can overdose on that and suddenly you become weaker in combat because you've used too much or something like that.
Or you die. You just fail mission.
You just kill yourself.
I reckon you're right with that being like toxicity and stuff. There will probably be a downside to using it, which is kind of cool as well. But for the most part, I think the thing that's also interesting for the first time is that you're not a character. Like, you are a character, but you're creating the look to that character and kind of the character you want to be. Because, I mean, The Witcher, you're obviously Geralt, and you can't really change much apart from his hair and his outfit, but down to the core, he is Geralt as well. So I think they're changing it a bit in this one to kind of, obviously you are a character called V, but what do you do with that character is really up to you with how you want to build it in terms of the stats. How cool you want to be, that's a cool stat. And there aren't really classes, but there are like skills and stats, like similar to, say, Fallout or something.
It'll be interesting what the type of approach they'll do with upgrades and that stuff. Like, will you be able to like replace your arm later on or something like that?
It seems like you already can from the start. Like, replace your organs or whatever you want to do. But what I like is the concept of like building up a backstory for your character almost. Where like when they're picking the character, the female, they at one point it's like, what motivated you, or who's like your inspiration? What's your reason to be in Night City? And I can't remember what the other one was, but it was basically like, I can imagine there's story points that'll feed into how people interact with you, where it's like, why you're here. And it very much, the idea of concept of your V, this, you know, unknown character, whatever, very much reminds you of Shepard, where it's like, Shepard was a character, but he still had your influence on the character he was, as opposed to Geralt, where I felt very compelled to be what I felt Geralt was, like as the character he was set up to be, as opposed to Shepard, where it's like, if I wanted to be a dick as Shepard, I just went and did it. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll play that role.
Got a punch reporter.
Yes, and Geralt, I didn't want that. I felt like Geralt had his characteristics, and I always felt that's how I should play him.
Anything else we're excited about Cyberpunk?
The customization aspect is my biggest concern, because I'm not a big first-person fan, because I don't like not being able to see my character. And what I've seen in this footage has me feeling they've done it right, in that it's first-person most of the time, but there's heaps of times where they will show your character, whether it be cut to a cutscene type system, or just the way you interact with the world itself, where it's like, now you can see, like the eye thing that comes to mind, where it's like they take your eye out and it comes across, and they're uploading like the ability to scan the environment, you know, detective vision type stuff. Like, it's just the context of everything and the ability to see your character at the same time. It's just fits together in a way that I feel like most games don't even try to justify their mechanics. They just go, it's a game, you get it. With this, feels like they're really going out of the way to contextually explain everything.
Yeah, I think it's something CD Projekt saw in first-person games, and for the most part, they have done third-person, so you can see your character. They probably liked the kind of, that you could see, like the fact like third-person is popular is because you can see what your character is. It's not like, because you go through this huge customization in most of these games. It's just like, well, I'll never see me again, really. And CD Projekt are really going out of their way to go, no, this is your character. You can see them. You can, because they're kind of going for that really cinematic approach to like cinematics stuff, where Fallout will go for the most part just first person, like you're talking to them. Whereas this one tries to give you all the angles and cinematography of films.
Yeah, and I can certainly imagine, like, the apartment seems like it's a main fixture of this game, where it seems like you're probably going back there a hell of a lot, because they're, like, showing you, like, all the weapons you have on the wall, very Matrix-type thing. You know, they've got your clothes on the racket. Like, all that kind of aspect makes me think that you're going there a hell of a lot, and you'll see your progress. It's like, oh, you've gotten some new upgrades. Now you look in the mirror, and, like, your entire face is now cyborg, because you've over-augmented yourself. Like, if they don't have the Deus Ex sunglass augmentation, I'll be disappointed.
I will be heartbroken.
Got to get those sunglasses in there.
Need a big trench coat as well, and I think in terms of the cool looking department, I think they will absolutely nail it for Cyberpunk, and clearly we're pretty excited for it. Like a lot of people are excited for this game, because it's been a long time coming. It's been years before we've actually seen ourselves how it plays. We saw it at E3, and having other outlets telling you, like, this is the demo we saw and this is why we're excited. It's like, it's more exciting now that we're like, this is what Cyberpunk is, and we finally know what to expect from the game, which, you know, is things people have been waiting years for. So yeah, Cyberpunk.
It's good everyone's on the same level now, the public and the press. Everyone has seen basically the same thing, so everyone knows what it is.
Yeah, so it's always good when we know what they've seen, because taking their word for it, it's not as fun as actually seeing it. So yeah, to move on from this fantastic looking game to one I'm pretty concerned about, because we're talking about Anthem, because I read an interesting article today that Anthem is influencing far more at Bioware than we thought. Because we've heard reports from VG 24/7 that new Dragon Age and Mass Effect titles will be heavily influenced by Anthem, says Bioware, kind of to tell further stories through updates and DLC. So basically, it looks like they're adding a very live game focus to their traditional single-player focused games.
I mean, it just reeks of EA, doesn't it? It just sounds like EA, its entire focus. It's like, that is what they want. They want live services. They want the ability to market and keep people coming back again and again and again and make as much external money as possible from it. And it basically comes to zero surprises that that's what they want to do. The impact it'll have on their games, I don't entirely know, but I mean, it's immediately like feels dodgy when like the experience used to be like, you know, you can interact with every character, you can get every weapon, you get whatever. Now it's like, to get that stuff, you're probably gonna either have to play for way more than everyone else, or, you know, pay for it or whatever.
Yeah,
so.
Or wait for the content to be added, because they'll have like events and stuff that are time gated, like giving you reasons to come back to this game.
And that's the biggest issue with games that evolve over time. Your time doesn't revolve around this game. You're going to miss out. If you, like, say, not there one weekend, but they have a limited time event where if you don't do it, you miss out and you'll never see it again. It's those type of things that sort of ruins the game for a lot of people. The other thing with it is, by having it online all the time, continuously updated, they're essentially releasing a game that should be finished early and then feeding you little snippets over time to make you continue to want to play.
So do we kind of see this as a way to easily more push out games that are incomplete, so like Andromeda, but say that content, the game's evolving, there's more coming to it? Does that kind of give them the way to actually release in a state that's not what we might consider release worthy?
Yeah, very possibly. We kind of already seen that, as you said, with Andromeda, where it's like, these games aren't really done. Like, Xbox at the moment, I feel like, is a company that's doing it a lot, at least with the companies they're supporting, where it's like, Sea of Thieves isn't really done, but we're going to release it because it's good enough. There could be way more content down the line, but it's not that much right now, and it is concerning that they go, all right, Dragon Age, maybe we'll release it. There's a lot of, like, conditional stuff where it's like, if Anthem bombs big time, Bioware might not exist. EA may just shut them down and recoup the costs to somewhere else, you know? So there's always that concern as well, but just this aspect of, like, everything where it's like, I'm sure there's so much pressure from EA on Bioware. It's like, you need to be making this kind of money, and, like, I don't know how to do it other than to implement this kind of system where we're breaking off piecemeal, like Jordan said, or it's story. It's such a big problem because it's story focused, and as soon as you break story off piecemeal, it ends up like Destiny, where it's basically like there's not much there to begin with, and all you do is there's like a carrot on the stick, and you're like hoping there's going to be something more that justifies it all. But at that point, it's too late. Like, you've already lost interest in what it is.
Yeah,
Basically, I'm getting to the point with games like this that when they release, you don't necessarily want to buy it off the bat like you normally would when a game comes out. You're like, okay, I'll give it like another year and then I'll play it because I know it'll be finished then. But all the hype for it's gone by then, and everyone else has played it.
Yeah, well,
So.
I mean, for them, as long as people have played it, they're playing it and buying it, they can actually deal with the people who are going to wait. Like, I think Final Fantasy 15 is a really good example of a game that at launch and now what you've got are very different because they've expanded on things. And do we feel this will be kind of the norm for Bioware now, that the story might not be exactly the way they want it, and later on they might redo the ending or redo a major part of it?
It really comes down to how well Anthem is going to sell. If it's going to sell extremely well, then yeah, they will most likely follow this path to other games. But if it doesn't go well, then it's back to square one.
But my question with that is, I'm unsure if Anthem's failure would mean that this doesn't apply to other things EA are doing, because, you know, live service keeps people paying, keeps people coming back, and they've already got that basically with FIFA, and it's just like, it works there, and it's a proven success there. I think the influence of just Anthem is not the only thing influencing other parts of the EA games that they own.
It eventually gets to a point, though, that you've got so many subscriptions to everything that you're just churning out way more money than you should just to play games.
Yeah, but they don't really consider that an issue to them. It's an issue for us as a consumer, yes, but I think as a company, they're happy for people to be paying as many subscriptions as they want you to pay.
Well, it's more they want you to be paying for their subscription. Like,
it's true.
It's to make it as enticing as possible, and you do that by announcing this is the game, this is the base game or whatever, and they've already pre-thought out probably a year in advance of content, and then it's just whether they can execute that content in that time frame or not. That's just kind of the society we live in. There's like Bethesda and probably like Sony's like main flagship first party stuff is like maybe the only ones of like, but even then, like Spider-Man's already talking about the DLC they've got for October, November, and December. Like, it's just games now. Like, they have to have this hook, this drive for you to buy it and then continue to play it for months, because otherwise a lot of consumers will not buy it. It's like, why would I buy that when I could be hypothetically saving for Cyberpunk, which probably is going to be 600 hours to do every option in the game or every choice or whatever. Oh, I could play this 20-hour game. Like, it's such a interest of like people thrifty with their money, and the fact that they're free to play games like Fortnite, where it's like, I'm paying nothing for this game. I could play it all day, every day, and it's such a casual thing for them that why are they going to spend all this money on a game that maybe only has 20 hours of content and then you've got nothing else to do?
Basically comes down to value versus quality of the game of which you're getting. Whereas Fortnite, it's free and you can play it as much as you want, but Destiny...
Well, it's like any other, like, if you say, like, if Spider-Man didn't have that DLC plan, it'd be a 20-hour, one-and-done game. They want you to see, like, oh, this has come out, I can go back to it. They want you to keep playing their games as much as possible, which keeps you from playing the competitions games. But yeah, is there any benefit to this kind of live game thing in these single-player games? Like, is there any place where this actually adds benefit to the products rather than detracting from it?
On the content level, like, because they've broken it out, they're releasing more stuff, which means if you're super into this game, like, for example, Final Fantasy 15 you brought up before, Mitch, was like, I really like that game, and I wanted to play more content, and they keep releasing more content. And that's not inherently a bad thing. It's bad, and 15 immediately had this too, where it's like, you feel immediately like it's cut out. Like, fighting games always have this. Fighting games are always, they release, the DLC was planned from the start. Capcom's infamous for doing this, had basically having all the DLC characters on the disc and then selling it to the consumers post-meal in the future. It's so common these days that people, I think, just gotten used to it, except it's like, oh, if I buy a fighting game, I know that basically the first 3 DLC characters were already basically part of it.
Yeah. It's sort of like the whole on-disc DLC dilemma we used to see last generation, where it's kind of like, this kind of raises that same question. It's just like, if this is already ready and it's already on the disc, why don't include that from the start?
Money. Money.
Money. The world revolves around it, and that's basically the whole point of these live games. It's just like, if they can make more money from you, they're going to make as much money from you as they can.
Biggest issue is they're ripping off their consumer, but there's essentially nothing really we can do about it when it comes to it.
I mean, there's a few
unless
things you
you
could do.
not
but-
buy the game.
Yeah.
But then you're missing out.
To bring like CD Projekt back, like CD Projekt is the best I can think of when it comes to a company that treats the customers right, have heaps of content on the horizon, and you know they didn't have that ready from the get-go. Like there's 2 DLC expansions for Witcher 3. We knew they were going to do them. Like they said there was going to be DLC expansions, 2 of them. But the time it took for them to do it, and the new assets and the new environments and everything done there, there's no question that was out of passion that they did those content over time. Shovel Knight's another one that comes to mind where it's like, this isn't like cut off the disc ready for later. It's, we are doing this for you because you love our game and you want to experience more of it.
Yeah, there's certainly different developers and publishers and how they learn or take from what their consumers want them to do, or like have respect for that company, not just like, you know, like no one truly respects EA because for the most part, like a company isn't your friend. They're here to make money, and EA, they want to kind of make as much money as they possibly can and to kind of offset the cost of making games, which for them is pretty expensive because the amount of people they have and the amount of people working on these games is just, it's immense. So for the most part, like from a business standpoint, it makes sense why they love this live service thing, but from a consumer, it's just like, it really hurts the game itself as a product because for the most part, like, we want to see a game come out that it's finished, you can play A to B and the whole story is really good. So you like, for example, you've got God of War, which never felt like it was missing a single thing, whereas some of these other games certainly feel like they are missing content, and I wonder if that's certainly the live service element coming in that is now a staple of gaming, which we can't really stop at this point because it's proven itself. But yeah, it's sort of interesting to see this kind of sneaking its way into games, and we've spoken about Cyberpunk, which I don't feel will have any of this because like you've got CD Projekt who they make games that are well worth the money, DLC that actually is worth the money, and they have GOG.com where they actively put out all these old games. So you can see that they as a company have really positioned to like their pro-consumer, where EA can't really say that about them.
It's almost like too late for them. It's like they're so anti-consumer that it's like, well, we might as well just go into it then. There's no other way.
Yeah.
No one looks at us any differently. What can we fix it? We can't. So let's just go all the way.
Let's just go full evil. For the players, PlayStation.
Kill the younglings. Go all the way.
And on that bombshell, we'll be back in a moment to close this show out. Thank you so much for watching. This has been the Gaming Booth Podcast, a podcast that releases every Tuesday, every week, covering games and what we think of them. Joining me has been Russell and Jordan. Thank you both for joining me on this little adventure of consumerism and awesome video games.
Am I free from this game now until next week?
I'll put the key on the desk. It might be a little hard to reach, but I'm sure you can manage it. So thank you so much for watching. Hopefully we'll see you again, and goodbye.